Well, it's that time of week once again. Our resident lawyer, Despina Priala, from boutique law firm Priala Legal in Runaway Bay, with us each and every Thursday just after 8:30 New South Wales Daylight Saving Time to offer her legal expertise. She provides some general advice on the latest of hot topics, and she has experience that spans more than 25 years, all sorts of areas, including property and commercial law. She prepares wills as part of estate planning and litigation, and a whole lot more. And she's here with us every week to clear legal matters up, issues up. Good morning, Despina.
Good morning, Wayne. Good morning, Brooke.
Good morning, Despina. Good morning, Wayne. So this morning, first up, we're going to talk about cancel culture. So we've discussed this in the show before, but for anyone who is unsure or hasn't heard of it, the definition that I've searched of cancel culture, according to the online Cambridge Dictionary, is a way of behaving in a society or group, especially on social media, in which it is common to completely reject and stop supporting someone because they have said or done something that offends you. So that's the definition there. And obviously we're going to talk about a recent case to do with a woman in the paper. And this one kind of struck home to you, didn't it, Despina?
It did. And I'm so pleased you looked at that definition. I haven't had the time to look at that definition. But when I was listening to you, I think it really forms part of the story, because it is all about this. Does this statement or this conduct that someone has done or carried out, does it offend me? So we're really looking at a subjective point of view, and this is what we're getting to, where I'm in an organisation or a business and someone's done something or it offends me, let's get rid of that person. Well, it never used to be that way. No. And it's becoming more like that because of this supposed, yes, freedoms to speak the way we want to, do what we want to do, say what we want to say, but we've always had limitations, restrictions. You can't just go out there and do whatever you want or say whatever you want. But this cancel culture, it's becoming prevalent in so many forms in society, in different organisations and businesses, and in social settings. I think it's becoming a real problem.
Yeah, exactly. And even going on from that, it did give an example in the dictionary, which I thought was quite interesting. The main argument against cancel culture is that it doesn't enable people who have wronged society the opportunity to apologise and learn from their mistakes, which I think is a really good point. People are becoming less tolerant when we all make mistakes, whether you agree with this question or not. It just depends. But it's I guess at some points it has positive intention maybe, but it seems like the society is just becoming less and less tolerant.
Oh, absolutely. But where you said make a mistake, well, who says it's a mistake? And this is where it comes down to the subjective view. So I wanted to raise this issue because it is a little bit, I suppose, personal to me, in that it involves the Girl Guides. And I wanted to talk about it because perhaps people aren't aware of this issue that's just come about recently, where another CEO of an organisation was sacked purely for asking a question. Right, so by asking a question, which we'll get into in a minute, within that organisation, the powers to be above the CEO, well, they didn't like her asking certain questions, and from their perspective, they think, well, she's looking to change some things, the ideology perhaps of the Girl Guides, she's wanting to change something. So nothing had been changed. Nothing was changed. She was merely asking the question. Now, in my younger days,
very cute.
I was a brownie. And I was the brownie in Sydney, and I then became a Girl Guide, or part of the Girl Guides Association in Sydney before we moved up to the Gold Coast. A little bit of personal trivia or information. But anyway, so when I read this, it really spoke to me about what was going on within the Girl Guides Association. So the chief executive of the Girl Guides Western Australia group, so her name is Karen Lisignoli, hopefully I pronounced that correctly. So what she did do when you talked about conduct or saying something, so she was seeking legal advice on changing the membership rules within the Girl Guides to, quote unquote, biological females. Okay, and I know this is very topical issue, not just with now the Girl Guides.
It's with every organisation.
Organisations, education organisations. So I know it's an issue in society, and I don't really want to use this segment to talk about that. I think it's quite a controversial issue, and we could talk about it, but that's not the purpose why I wanted to raise it. Why I wanted to raise the topic, and it's a little bit personal to me, as I said, is because by someone merely asking a question, seeking legal advice, in this case about the organisation itself, should we be limiting, or perhaps not, that's not the right word, should we be saying in our constitution it's only biological females, as opposed to, I suppose, non-biological females, or women that people who live as a female, who have a lifestyle as a female. It's a little bit different, perhaps. Should we be changing it so that only biological females can join the Girl Guides? And just for asking that question and seeking legal advice through a tweet, which perhaps may not have been the right
The best venue.
channel.
Yes.
So to clarify, she wrote it publicly. Yes, really.
We
on
assume
on Twitter because someone noticed this comment, didn't they?
So what it said in the article, and this is in the Australian, is that she used Twitter to message women's rights lawyer Catherine Deeves, who's the head of Save Women's Sport Australia, to seek legal advice. And the way that she, because it was through a tweet, and we assume it was public because a particular group in Western Australia called Out in Perth noticed the tweet and published an online article exposing the new chief executive's criticism. Now, whether or not it was a criticism, it was merely seeking legal advice about this particular topic. And because of that, she was sacked. And it's interesting because the comments that have come out in the article within the Girl Guides is their view was that because she asked that question and was seeking legal advice, they believe that she was causing a serious and imminent risk to the reputation of the organisation, which I thought was quite curious because let's look at what is the reputation of the Girl Guides. What is it known for? If you look back at the origins, as I understand it, it was formulated way back in the 1900s. So it was really come about from the Scouts organisation that was around the world, and that was really for boys and for doing boy activities, camping and whatnot. So they were looking to create another organisation for girls to do similar activities, but making it a single-sex organisation. And so that's how it came about, that they formed the Girl Guides for girls to do similar activities, but in a single-sex environment. And as I understand from this article, she was seeking the advice. So we go back to why were you seeking that advice, right? Good question.
Yeah.
So apparently she was seeking that legal advice because she was worried about the safety implications of girls sharing tents with men or boys who identified themselves as a female. So as I said, I don't think we should get into that particular issue, but it does raise the point, doesn't it, about, well, if you can't even go out in society and say, well,
it was a question.
Can't we even question now,
Yeah.
is it right or is it not right? I think we should be asking these questions. And why should you be sacked merely for asking those questions?
And
That's our God-given right, if I can say that. It's our freedom to ask those questions.
And I think the point to make is that she wasn't actually advocating a position. She was merely asking the question.
That's right. And I will make it clear, so it's on the record, that nobody asked her. So nobody within any transgender groups was actually asking them, well, can you do this or can you do that? She was coming on board and she thought it was obviously prudent, looking at the Constitution, to say, well, should we be saying it's only biological girls, given what's happening out there in society with different movements, or not? And I think that as the CEO, given the position that she was, that she should be asking these questions and that she should take these prudent steps for people to discuss it. Now, if it was properly discussed in a forum and then maybe it was voted on and then it was for or against, okay, then you have an outcome. But now by simply sacking her, there is no discussion and there is no forum and there is no ability for people to even ask these questions. And I think that's of itself is wrong. And I wanted to put it out there to listeners to say, well, what do you think about this now that it's permeating through, obviously through schools, but also now in associations like the Girl Guides.
The girl being the operative word there.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And would you say then, I guess for anyone listening who may have a social media account as well, do you think that's the best way? I'm not saying that it was completely wrong, but do you think that's the best way to ask legal advice is through
Public, something public like
Twitter
Facebook or Twitter.
or Facebook or
Well,
Instagram?
yes, you can't go into the mind of this particular
No.
CEO, can you? So I can't speak for her, but what I can say is if you're serious about that, you should be seeking legal advice through proper channels to make it a serious issue. If you're going to make it public, are you inviting this sort of backlash?
Exactly.
I don't think that she should have been sacked for merely asking the question, but perhaps a different forum might have had a different outcome.
Yes, and more opinions that could then get involved and maybe dealt with more fairly. That's for
Exactly.
sure. Yeah.
Behind closed doors, or more privately, perhaps, to start off with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And coming up next, are you thinking about selling your home? Have you ever been contacted by council about an issue concerning your property? Well, there is a common mistake made that may get you into trouble. Despina's got all the details coming up on Talking Law. You're listening to Radio 97.